We're live and recording for yet another exciting session that we're doing with a leader as part of Vitrina LeaderSpeak. Today on very, very high, extremely popular demand, we are actually having one of the hottest topics to be discussed. Timothy O is joining us all the way from Singapore, from Asia.
Hi.
And he's going to talk about the COL Group, which is the company that's incubated ReelShort, FlareFlow, and just such a hot sort of company and group within the micro series, micro dramas, vertical video, a revolution that's actually sort of come into the media and entertainment trade sector. This is an exciting conversation on multiple counts. Timothy was a part of the traditional trade setup, and now he's actually sort of crossed over. So, Tim, it's such a pleasure to actually have you join us today.
Thanks for having me, Atul. It's been such a crazy journey being a part of this micro drama craze, as you rightfully mentioned. It's a hot topic all around. So everywhere, whether if it's trade or not trade, I'm in a train, I'm outside, I'm watching people watching it, and I'm like, wow, it's quite a phenomenon going on.
Incredible. And, it's kind of suddenly sprung up. Of course, it's been in motion in China for a long time, and then in other parts of Asia as well. But
Yeah.
I think the consciousness within the sort of traditional trade for media and entertainment has really gripped over the last couple of months. And, I'm sure you kind of feel all the love and the curiosity from all your colleagues in the day as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's become a buzzword because, I think people are realizing that the watching trends of consumers have changed drastically in the last couple of years. I think that people have not figured out a way to monetize it or to make it more formalized before this. So I'll give you an example, right? Prior to this, for many, many years, we already had Facebook, Instagram videos, TikTok, which is vertical, but nothing really came out of it in form of creating an IP. Obviously, there were influencers, right? But major networks and TV spaces usually just use social media as a space of promoting. It's never the main channel. But with the shift of mobile phones and the first screen concept, right? People are using their phones as their first screen more than anything else. Sometimes I even get people telling me that they don't really touch their TV. So with that change, I think this whole microdrama genre came about whereby people start asking themselves, can I put content, strong IPs, strong stories into a vertical format, which I think is a natural evolution of what has been. Yeah.
That's incredible. And there are just so many questions that even we are flooded with, just as a platform that's sort of following the entertainment sector and especially the business side of it. There are questions relating to how it's made, how is it monetized, how long does it take to create it. So we'll I'm sure delve into a lot of that. But to get us started, would be great to actually sort of give a background to the COL Group, the COL Group, and essentially how do you sort of look at the group in terms of all the activities that are done, the lines of businesses that you have.
Sure. So we're actually a publicly listed company in China. And how we come about was we started as a company 25 years ago where we digitized novels and brought some of these amazing stories into a digital format. And that was where the start of the internet, right? So as you can imagine, we would have a lot of IPs, like millions of IPs and stories. And how we use these stories was we started publishing audiobooks. We started publishing devices where there were basically families at home could listen to using these audio devices. And then subsequently, with the transition of mobile, we use these stories and we work with telcos to develop micro stories that were sent in chapters. So you subscribe the chapters via a telco subscription. And eventually, we launched the app called Chapters, where you could play with characters and outcomes of the characters, right? So if you could tell, right, this evolution of storytelling, it's quite on the trend of what microdramas is today, where the stories are being told in micro chapters and using big IPs and stories that we know online. And in 2021, the company started launching microdramas in China. We're the first to do it. And how it came about was, we were producing movies, we're producing TV series, and it costs a lot and it takes like years, 5 years to get one program out. And it's always a hit and miss, right? You spend so much time and effort and you don't really know whether if it's going to work. And that was a time where, it was like close to COVID and people were, kind of like very mobile centric. So the company started thinking, can we take these stories and tell it in a vertical format, shorter storylines, faster paced, and whether if it's going to work with lesser budget. And it did, and then in 2022, we basically incubated ReelShort, which is based out of the US. It became a huge success. Charted #1 and obviously has been #1 ever since. And more recently, we launched this app called FlareFlow in the last 6 months as a competing app in the space. And it also became top 5 in the US and globally within a couple of months. So it all goes back to the idea of like we have so many stories to tell and it takes so much lesser time and effort to put out a micro drama or vertical series compared to a traditional series, which would take, like I said, years to complete. Yeah, so that's the background story of
that is incredible. It's incredible. And then there is a flywheel in motion just with what you described as chapters. There's ReelShort, there's FlareFlow, and there are other businesses that continue to sort of feed into the flywheel.
Microdrama space. Yeah. So we have other businesses that fits into the space. We actually have movies. We have original IPs. One of them is called 罗小黑战记, which was launched is a Black Cat character anime that was launched in July this year and also in the US too. So the company primary basically nature is on microdramas and creating IPs. Okay. Actually, I missed out on one part. We spoke about the US and global, right, and China. So actually, on top of that, the company also does microdrama in China, which is a separate business from the global businesses itself. I always think of the company as almost like a crazy, gigantic ecosystem because they're not focused on just one platform. You can imagine, and I was there for my induction previously, and I saw the IT team, and I sat down with them, and I was like, "Oh, so what do you guys do?" They were like, "Oh, we also do microdramas," and I was like, "What? The IT team too?" Yeah, but they use AI to create microdramas like realistic human beings. Microdramas, they use AI to create animes because they are in the tech and IT side, right? So the whole company is thinking about it, whichever department you're in.
Gosh, that is that's quite an ecosystem, across functions. That's incredible. And talking about functions, you've actually come on board with a fairly wide portfolio. There's distribution, there's licensing, there's partnerships. It's global remit. Talk a little bit about your journey, and again, your background goes to what Sony Pictures, and then being on the traditional side, and then you've actually sort of crossed over. Talk a little bit about how your background, and then also how this came about, this opportunity.
Sure. So I was quite taken at first by the whole space because when I first joined, it's not really discussed much. Everybody's watching it, but nobody really discusses it. So when I joined, it was almost like okay, do I want to take a risk and see what this is, right? So I joined at the time, and I think within, and when I first joined, I kind of like went all out with PR and started talking to the media internationally, the likes of the Variety, Deadline, World Screen, as you can imagine, about this genre. And we launched the first announcement where we have the biggest distribution arm, where we had around 1,000 dramas, right? So that kind of like was the first major news in the industry. that went out after a long time, because there were always like a bit here and there. So it was covered by every other publication. And that came from my background in PR, right? Because I used to do, I used to lead PR in Sony Pictures. And then it became such a quick thing, because I then suddenly got invited to panels and started to speak about it. And I started seeing the news started covering a lot more. And in a couple of months' time, I think within a couple of months, I noticed that our competitors started doing it as well. And in no time, Hollywood was talking about it, because there was this, I would say, motion, because we started publishing numbers of how much you could potentially make. Media Partners Asia started to publish articles about like it surpassing the what do you call that, the box office revenue in 2025. So
Wow.
it becomes something that everybody started noticing. And it also dawned on people that the vertical format is where eyes are at, and it reaches more people if you think about it. Like, I give you an example, right? Like my mom, who is in her 50s, would struggle to watch a series on Netflix, not because she doesn't want to, but it's just a lot to watch, right? But when she's on the way to the market, she's sitting on the bus, at home, in a bedroom, she could watch something. And that something, more often than not, is this micro stories that is capturing her attention, and she's spending all her money there. So we are capturing a wider audience than the traditional OTT players, because we are also capturing people who find big stories very hard to digest. People in second, third tier cities, let's just say in Vietnam, right, would find a story on Apple TV very difficult to watch, not because they don't understand, but it's just too abstract. But a story about a woman who is going from rags to riches and got her revenge is accessible to anybody, right? So it's obviously a shift in that space. So to bring back to your point in terms of like how and why I joined this company, in terms of what this is that I think I saw the opportunity of like being able to tell stories to more people. Secondly, my experience in PR and marketing really did help with driving the wave. And thirdly is I come from the gaming space, because after I was at Sony, I went to gaming for 8 years. And this space itself is very, very gamified. Yeah.
That's right.
So that really did help.
That is a fascinating sort of connecting of dots. And exactly, I was going to also ask you about the gaming piece, because the whole monetization engine is actually heavily influenced from just gaming, and jump to the next level. In this case, it's jump to the next sort of episode.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Does the group also have any assets and businesses in gaming?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Fascinating.
Yeah, so I like you said, right, the whole gamification model is what that really works. It also is something familiar to people because of like e-commerce, right? When you buy stuff on like e-commerce platforms, especially in Asia, you get a lot of coins, you get surprise boxes, you get to use the coins to get vouchers. So the whole concept isn't new. Like it's just being applied onto TV watching. It's different from regular TV, because a regular TV and OTT platforms, you pay a subscription and you watch the series, right? But for this, you are enticed to watch it, and then when you are hooked onto it, you use different methods to kind of continue watching the series. So the whole ecosystem kind of varies quite a lot in terms of like how a user is being attracted into its space.
Fascinating. And you talked about your mom who watches some of these micro series, micro dramas. I was actually in Hollywood last month in a tech summit. Very senior exec from a studio, a CTO level person is smashing through episodes, right? Very, very quickly. He says, I can't get off it. It's very addictive. So all of us are like listening to these stories, and it's not just the young population that is watching. This is definitely sort of attracting a host of very unexpected people into it. That is fascinating.
We are actually. So Actually, to be very frank, the genres are expanding really quickly. The mainstay, the ones that really are attracting the audiences right now are, the romance, the CEO romance, the werewolf stories. But we are starting to see the stories evolve with the technology such as AI. You could do blockbuster series, right? You can create like aliens, you can create robots, because with AI it's a lot faster. You can create these big scenes where typically with like before AI you had to film everything and CGI everything, right? So we're going to start seeing a lot of these new genres that's happening. In fact, in China, the content type has changed. So in okay, so when it first started, right, it's always this fast hook, high dramatic, high stakes drama, which is, to some people, they call it like trashy. But now we're seeing big stories, we're seeing IPs, we're seeing end of world, apocalypse, aliens, zombies. So as you can imagine, with these new genres, it's going to attract new people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating. And yeah, you absolutely. I saw a few news items about the group actually sort of, buying a lot of older IP as well, and now rehashing that as,
Yeah.
completely new stories in a very contemporary setting, but told in a vertical format. That is,
Yeah, exactly.
that is
Yeah,
fascinating.
and as you can imagine, it takes, let's just say right today, if we're filming a series that a zombie one, right, then you have to do makeup
Right.
and everything. Typically for like a regular series, you would have to have like 100 extras. But with a vertical series, because it's shot vertically, it's 7, 8, 9, you could work with much lesser because it's tighter in terms of frame. So the ability for you to do things at a faster pace with lesser resources, but then tell similar stories, it's just amazing. You can imagine how much more things filmmakers could do, creators could do with lesser resource, but yet being able to still tell that very same story. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So I mean, just going into then the, the details relating to some of the coverage, right? Talk a little bit about how many countries are the apps available in, how many languages, right? A little bit about the flavor of how global is the business today, and where is it sort of going in 2026?
Sure. So the app is available everywhere, over 170 countries, and has 25 languages. It keeps expanding. Um, we we don't just only have the app. We also do licensing of content. So one of the things that we're doing right now is, because we realize that a lot of platforms are starting out, and to start out a platform where we already have 5 years of head start, right? We've been producing drama since 2021. So you can imagine we would have 1,000 over titles. So we are out there talking to partners who are starting platforms, and they want a library of content, either being Chinese, English, Japanese, Korean. So we're seeing a lot of these new platforms being very interested to take our library, because it's a good start. I mean, typically, if you were to start, you would have to film 100 series, right, to fill up your library. So we see that as an opportunity, because there are a lot of new platforms starting. And on our end itself, we function as two platform, two business method. One is a B2C, which is FlareFlow, and ReelShort, which is the ones that we incubated, and then we also use the distribution model to help the business grow. I think that's a B2B play. Yeah.
Very interesting. And have you already started that out, or is that something that you joined to sort of start? Because that's part of your remit, right?
Yeah, that's part of my remit. We've already started. We have a couple of big platforms that are launching, and very interesting, because these platforms are not your traditional media. They all come from gaming spaces. They come from tech spaces. They're not the same people that used to do TV. So when we tell them, things like the M&E tracks, we tell them about licensing, they're like, "Oh, what is this? I don't really know what's all this technical terms for like licensing, right?" Because
Right.
they're all coming from different spaces. So which makes it challenging. So you can imagine, when I go to a summit, right? When I go to an event, most of the time it's trade. And these trade people are from the TV networks. But the TV networks or the film people are there to understand what's happening. But the people who are really in it are the people who are in the tech space or who are pivoting from something else, right? I'll give you an example. Like I had a lot of conversations with people from in India in real money gaming, which was banned. So they have to pivot to other businesses. And a lot of these companies come from those spaces. So
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, it's quite interesting. Yes.
fascinating. And so these licensing arrangements that you're doing, what's the typical model? Is that is that geo-locked? Is it for certain territories? How do you sort of look at that business growing?
Sure. So most of the time in our world, the series, firstly, are not exclusive because
Yep.
obviously they have premiered either on our platforms
That's
or
right.
other platforms. We do sometimes have exclusive arrangements where we produce specifically for a network or a app or platform itself, but then it is different. So we typically go by non-exclusive, by region, and 1, 2, 3 years format, which and the prices are not crazy. It's on average like $5,000 for a series because it's micro, and
Right.
usually people buy in bulk. Unlike a series where you buy on, let's just say you're buying for Netflix, right? Then you have to buy a big title because the title is
Right.
expensive, right? But then for us, is usually not a lot, and then you basically bundle it with quite a number. Yeah.
Understood. Understood. No, that's super helpful. And again, we have a very large set of streamers and distributors on our system. So I'm sure they'll typically sort of reach out to you for some of those arrangements. One of the other things that I wanted to also understand was relating to just the rate at which you are able to produce content. I saw the news about FlareFlow, investing in some 180 originals next year. Is that,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a crazy number of originals. Typically, we see that scale only from very large companies in the traditional side, like Netflix or Prime Video. So, how do you sort of look at originals? Which are the markets where you're sort of able to produce those originals? Is that restricted to only a few, or are you expanding that part as well? Also, in production, is it all self-managed and self-created, or do you sort of have partners on the production side? If you can talk a little bit about that, that'd be super helpful.
Sure. So we have around like 20 plus production partners around the world. Some of them we've invested in it. Some of them are basically partners that we work with. The model is slightly different because we are not like a typical network, right? So, typically in the series, you would have to basically pitch the series to the network, and the network would have to review the show before it goes on air. The network in our world is the audience. So I'll give you an example, right? Today, if we have a series and we will put the series online with a few versions because we want to see what works and what doesn't work. And we could take the series down and re-edit it because we want the series to hit and have the hook. Because our whole concept is that we want the audience to be able to finish watching it and watch more of it and wants to basically continue, right? So the idea of basically putting up a finished complete series is not the end point. The end point is the ability to react to the audience behaviors because we are capturing data. So on average, right, we are doing approximately around 400 experiments on the series each month. We're testing it. We're seeing whether if the series ends well or not. We're using the data points. The data points will then help with the storytelling because we then know, for example, in episode 2, the 5th second is where the audience start losing interest and we need to start putting a major plot over there. Yeah. So we tell stories using data, which is very different from a typical like story arc, and then you put it up there and hopefully they will finish watching it. So that's that.
It's crazy.
It's quite crazy. It's different, right?
It is different. I mean, look, we are a supply chain company as Vitrina. We understand the supply chain of, pre-production, production, and then how it actually goes to the finish line. At no point in that traditional supply chain is there a moment of revisiting and then changing it and again relaunching. That is astonishing. That
Yeah,
is
I know.
got goosebumps just hearing to the whole, just that whole workflow. That is fascinating.
You can imagine, like, maybe we put up 6 versions, and one version is where the female lead got into the accident right from the first 2 seconds. The other version is where the female lead got into the accident at 10 seconds. So which one tells the story better? But we live in a world with data, and we're not leveraging it as much as we want to. And I think with micro dramas, micro series, because of how much data we're getting, right? We are able to basically change the way the story is, or rather, the way the story is being delivered based on the user trends and habits. And it shapes the future stories too, if you can think about it, right? Because this is why a lot of partners, they come to us, and they go like, oh, we produce this micro drama. And I've been very frank, I sat there and watched series, right? And they are just from production companies. They come to me and say, we did this. And I'm like, oh, so how do you do it? Oh, basically we had this story, but we decided to film in vertical instead. But when I watched it, it was a hospital show. I'll give you an example. This is a realistic one I saw the other day. The first 8 seconds was the doctor walking down the ER. So you can imagine it was a wide shot, and it was the doctor walking down. And by the 8 second, I was like, oh my God.
Oh,
Like,
my.
it's still, the doctor is still walking, but obviously there's conversation, right? But then it's a wide shot of the doctor walking.
Just
But
walking.
by the 5th or 8th second, something needs to happen, right? Because
Right.
you are capturing the attention of people who are also swiping through Instagram. So
Right.
imagine you watch an Instagram video and you're like waiting for it to happen. You'll be bored, right? You'll be swiping up already. So you
Yeah.
need to be able to tell that story right from the get-go, right? So the traditional way of filming, where you just do the same thing, where you have the same cinematography and everything, doesn't work. Yeah.
Incredible. Incredible.
And,
That
and
is.
and and another thing which I think is interesting, which helps with production, is that we don't work with like superstars. We don't work with like, major Hollywood A-list actors. And that gives us the ability to do a lot more in a sense whereby we don't have to lock in schedules and stuff like this. We work with basically actors who are most of the time very good looking, very realistic, and it actually plays up to advantage if you think about it. So let's just say today, right, after you watch the show and you see this woman who is a secret billionaire, right, and then she's being bullied. And if she's a very famous person, it's acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes you out of the fantasy slightly,
That's right.
right? But when you watch it and you go like, ooh, this person, you're like, oh wow, it's interesting. This person looks good, but then I don't really know this person, but I'm more interested to watch it a bit more. It kind of intrigue you more than an actual actor. So yeah, I'm sure that it's going to evolve. The space is going to evolve. I think 2026 is going to be a really exciting year with Hollywood now getting more involved. A lot more players are going to come in. We're going to start seeing the evolution of the vertical space. Like what I say today might not be valid in the next 3 months because of how fast paced this space is changing. Yeah, so I'm quite looking forward to it.
I can totally believe that, especially with just the last 3-4 months that we've been just listening to a host of our members ask us and discuss it with us. We are actually already seeing so much change just within the last few months. I wanted to double click on something that you said earlier, which is that the 20 production partners on one side, but you are running 400 creative experiments on on your end. How do those two go together? Like having a production partner, is it restrictive to actually creating a lot of those experiments? How does that work?
So I think the experiment comes in all forms, right? So a lot of work goes into marketing, right? So the thing is this: if you want to spend this much money, so I'll give an example. We spend approximately 150 to 250K per series, but we spend 4 to 5 times on marketing.
Right.
So
Wow.
this marketing is through mobile, right? So you can imagine like we will put episodes up on the social media, people will watch it and they would want to continue to watch it after that, right? So it's a whole journey of like, you know, teasing them, letting them get intrigued and then downloading, finishing the series. To do that, you need to spend money on marketing.
Yeah.
And whether if it's going to be the right show to market or not, we're not going to put, if we're going to put 180 series out, we're not going to put 180 million out, right? So we need to test it. So this is where the testing comes into place, right? We have techniques and ways whereby we put out content to specific group of audiences to see their reaction, whether if this series is going to be a hit or not. And we rank the series based on that. We would have we would say it's a S tier, S tier, a tier, B tier, C tier show. So very quickly we'll be able to identify whether if the series is going to be a highly ranked and highly tiered series, and based on that we decide how much money we want to spend on the marketing.
Oh, wow. And the tiers are a function of what? How do you
Based
how do you
on views, and then secondly, how much people are paying for it right from the get go.
Okay, got it,
Yeah.
got it. Fascinating. I mean, there is a fair amount of data and math, just trying to understand exactly what is working, what is not, and then what needs more of investments.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things which I was very impressed by is the marketing team. I mean, we have hundreds of marketing people behind an app, and they work 24/7.
I was curious about about just the whole culture of the company and
Hmm.
also how it's structured. So if you've got different is it different teams that are working on different stories or
Project.
different
Yes,
genres, different
right.
projects? Yeah, talk a little bit about that piece. Very, very curious to see how it's actually sort of designed for success from
Right.
from
So, I like to think that every department in this company functions a little bit like a business on its own. As I mentioned earlier, right? Like, you know, I was even surprised to see the IT team even producing micro dramas. Yeah. And so how it works is that I think every single team has its own P&L, and we are challenged to then obviously learn from each other, but at the same time um, uh, succeed in our own ways. And so, like, you know, the FlareFlow team and the team in China that produces microdramas have very little interaction from a day-to-day perspective, but they all put out similar stuff, right, which is microdramas. So the fundamental concept, I think, of the business is that what we have is really good IPs, really good stories, and then putting together different teams with different skill sets, different knowledge base, and different locality helps it to basically inspire different kind of outcomes, which is why sometimes in the market people will always say, oh wow, you know, COL is doing so much. That's because they are letting the people determine how they want to take their business to, and where they want to take it to. So let's just say I'm the GM, right? And I'm based in Southeast Asia. I could launch another app in Southeast Asia if I want to be very frank. That's the flexibility of what the company is giving, right? But then the question is whether if I want to play that role, or if I see myself as a content provider to
Right.
other people who are trying to launch the app. I've decided to go with that route because I want to. I have library, so I'm sat here with like 1,000 over series, and then for me it's like me going to the business, to another business unit to say, can I get your content? Can I get your content? Can I get your content? And I'll sell it on your behalf. It makes more sense for me to do that than to launch a separate app in this part of the world, because first and foremost, we already have those apps that the company is running. Second of all, everybody is talking about it and they don't know where to start. And this is an opportunity for me to present to them, right? And we are in a better position to advise people on where to start is than a regular distributor, because we own platforms ourselves. So I'm able to extract data, information, and even provide consultancy to some of these partners. Yeah.
Right. Understood. No, this is fascinating, and this is so different from the setup that you came from, which
It is so
is
different. Yeah.
yeah.
It is. I mean, like even to this day, I'm talking to the networks and the streamers on like a daily basis on different things, right? And it's taking quite a lot of time for people to adjust because it's a change in business model. Like what I shared with you just now, right? If you're on an OTT platform, you want to include micro dramas into your portfolio, the way you market has to be different.
Right.
The way you monetize is also different, right? Because it's not a subscription based. It's like you use coins to finish watching it. You know what I'm saying? So it's you there needs to be a whole thought process whereby like if you are a OTT platform, how do you embrace this new genre?
Right. Again, this is it's fascinatingly different, but one aspect to also understand is that in 2026, are you sort of bringing in more production partners? Are you, how's the expansion plan look like for you folks at this point?
Yeah, so we are looking at I mean definitely looking at expanding and looking at working with different partners. We already are, but we will do more. Some of these fun stuff and a fun fact for you would be like some of these production that we do are really global. So like for instance, right, we're building a studio in China. And that studio in China is going to be producing international dramas. So it's not Chinese dramas. What I mean is that we will bring the actors from the US over, and then the set is designed like the US. You know, um, yeah, because
That is
I give you
fascinating.
if you think about it, right? Like if I want to have a helicopter landing and I want to have a car crash, if I want to do that in New York City, probably
Yeah,
cost me hundreds of thousands. But if I
that's right.
do it in China, it's yeah, gonna be cheap, right?
Yeah,
So
and it's just the amount of coverage that you need is not
yeah,
very large.
a road is a road, right? You could always treat the color of the space slightly different after that, right? And there
Right.
are always spaces. Even a hospital is a hospital.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Fascinating. So,
Yes.
and this is the news. Is the studio already up? This is at
Uh,
10,000 square
we're
meter.
finishing. Yes, correct.
Okay,
We're finishing the
that
studio end of this year. Yeah, it'll be
okay.
fun to go watch it. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, it'll be on my bucket list of travel plans. Just
Yes.
to sort of observe the differences in the in that model vis-a-vis traditional. And then just in terms of some of these teams, how large are the individual teams? Again, I'm guessing, is there a lot of post production for you guys? Is there how does that work from a traditional setup?
So it's quite large. Like it's quite similar in terms of like the number of people. But
Okay,
then sometimes we're getting new people
okay.
versus the old school crew. I give you an example in terms of like writers, right? So most of the time people always ask, "Oh, so do you get traditional writers?" We tend to shake things up a little bit. We hire like ad copy writers, creative writers, because they are able to tell stories in 5 seconds like an
Oh,
advertisement. Yeah,
wow.
yeah. And then production crew, I mean, pretty much the same, I guess you can imagine. And we have like post-production studios, but because of the vertical format and because of how each series is only like 90 to 120 minutes, and it's quite quick. You can finish something in like 7 to 8 days. Yeah, versus months and months of post production. I mean, we're not featuring this in a big cinema with Dolby digital sound, right? So,
Yeah, that's
yes,
right. That's right. So, yeah, I can see that actually. And then the other aspect that I was curious about was in terms of the genre expansion. You mentioned that you already sort of testing all new genres either with
yes.
AI or with, right? Is that's a big plan for 2026?
Yeah, definitely. I think genre expansions, partnership with other brands. Well, I think that's going to be quite exciting. I can't say too much at this point, but I think you will start seeing a bit of like crossovers. You can think about it, right? Like if Hollywood is going to get involved, you're going to start seeing vertical versions of series that you see online on OTT platforms already, right? And they're going to experiment. And the reality is that we will see a lot of experimentation in 2026 because the experimentation is going to be quite intense because everybody is going to come in and say, how do we do this differently? How do we do this differently? Right. So when you're going to get that, then you're going to start seeing different outcomes. Yeah. And then it's going to go through a phase where just like the OTT, there will be consolidation at the end, right? Because there cannot be 200 apps doing the same thing.
That's right. That is, again, we can almost see that picture unfolding
The
as
cycle,
well.
right?
Cycle again of first lots of new apps, and then eventually all converges.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple of other quick questions relating to the formula. Is there a formula? I mean, like a lot of people talk about saying, oh, a cliffhanger every 60 seconds, but like some story peak in every 15 seconds. Again, there are lots of articles about what's the formula in some of these cases. Is there a formula? A, and B is, with so much of new content that you sort of bring in through different teams and different regions, how do you even sort of share these best practices from one team to the other?
Okay, so formula, to be frank, it's tried and tested. We have done, and sometimes we do a series multiple times. So
Okay.
yeah, because the reality is that you need to have the right actors that delivers the right story, and the story needs to be refined with what I mentioned earlier with the data, and the director needs to be able to capture that. You need to be able to identify how fast paced and how to capture these emotions, because again, we are working and racing against the vertical format, which is what people are used to seeing on Instagram. Attention span is really, really short. We're trying to basically capture this. And the idea is to bring people in so that they could continue to binge watch and to have the satisfaction. People always joke and say it's a bit of a guilty pleasure. And funnily enough, they always say it's a bit like porn, because it's satisfaction, right? You get to see something and you go, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So you need to have the satisfying factor, which you can't say that about every series, right? Sometimes you watch a TV series and it's a cliffhanger and only until episode 6, and then you go, then the story concludes, right? Because it's such a slow burn. Such a slow burn. Yeah, I'm sure you know. I've watched many series like this.
And that's what keeps coming back, even from folks who sort of trying it. The studio exec that I talked about in Hollywood, right? He said like he couldn't stop watching the next episode and the next episode and the next.
Yeah. So and a lot of these things are very small emotions. Are like things like, for example, you're being wronged, you're being accused of something that you didn't do, right? Or something that you feel like it's a feeling. So there's a lot of like something that people could relate very quickly from the get-go. So the formula is that it needs to be a fantasy where people could relate. Secondly, it needs to be something that it shouldn't be overly produced, because you are putting this on a phone. And imagine, I'm sure you've seen, like, imagine an ad for like let's just say a beauty ad, right? And then they do like a whole shampoo and stuff like this, and you're scrolling and suddenly you see this overly produced ad. It's very jarring, right? It becomes like, oof, it doesn't fit into the ecosystem. So it needs to feel like it's part of the space. That's why we use actors that are not famous, particularly super famous, right? Although they are becoming famous now, these microdrama actors, they have their own award ceremony, events and stuff like this. Yeah, it's becoming a whole thing. So, and thirdly, it needs to be relatable to the masses. I think, as you can imagine, when I was in the Dubai, and I was talking to some partners. They were telling me what kind of stories really take off in LATAM is these helpers who are secret millionaires, or how they take revenge of rich people. These are huge popular stories, and I was like, yeah, it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Right.
So stories like this makes it very accessible.
Right. Fascinating. Again, and some of those human emotions actually run across borders. So
Yeah,
it,
it's
it's
universal. It's universal.
universal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the last two segments, I wanted to cover two aspects actually. Tim. One was relating to partnerships, and the other relating to monetization.
Mm.
There are a host of sort of companies that typically will watch this, will listen to you today. What kind of partners are you looking for? Is it in the production space? If there is an independent producer who wants to actually, who has that big idea, should they approach you? Are you currently looking for partners in that space? You do a lot of localization. Just talk a little bit about the kind of partners that you're looking for at this point.
Okay, so two kinds of partners. One is I think we're always open to having conversations with local producers,
Oh,
particularly in the markets that we are expanding into. I think Europe and Australia, Asia are markets that we're really keen to grow in. Japan as well. So definitely keen on that form of partners. Also partners who are launching their own platforms, who are looking at distribution, content. Happy to have a conversation with them and see how we can support them from a growth perspective. Yeah.
fantastic. No, this is great. And then I'm guessing that even the localization part, is that a tech play? How do you sort of localize into local languages?
So now right now we have partners that we are working with already, but then as we expand, we will gonna need more resource. And yeah, localization, it really is a big thing for us because obviously um, each market, they call it globalized, right? Like you have to
Yeah.
be global and then local at the same time. Right now we see the content in the US and China does travel. But then there are limits to where it travels to. But it does travel to the most part of the world.
Got it.
Just as with every other platforms, right? Like the American and Chinese series, they do well. But we start to see India being a huge part. I think India is a space that Kuku TV, Pocket FM is doing exceptionally well, and there are a lot of small apps that's coming up, taking it up into regional spaces. And production in India is also very cheap. I think
That's right.
last I heard, I think 15,000 USD, you could do a series already. So I think we're always looking forward to partners to grow in the space.
Understood. No, this is super helpful again with our network. And the last segment that I wanted to sort of cover was really monetization. If you can talk a little bit about how the monetization model is working, there's tokenization. There is also uh, there's an ad component as well. And then
Yes.
are you considering subscription at some point? How's that aspect evolving?
Okay, so we have a both we call it a hybrid, right? Like where it's a bit in the traditional world like an AVOD and SVOD kind of format where we have subscription typically on a weekly and monthly basis is available, but it's slightly higher. So
Okay.
we would encourage people to then get a yearly subscription instead, which it's around range of 200 plus, and then weekly it's like 29, which is quite high. And but then there are options for you to actually buy coins to finish a series, and then you can use the coin package to redeem and change for the episodes. There are also options to watch ads to get the coins and to watch the
Okay.
series, but it's how you value time. So the whole concept of microdrama is time. First,
Right.
the time spent less, right? But then with the time spent less, you decide for yourself, right? Whether we're not here to charge you expensive, but you decide for yourself: do I want to use money to exchange for the amount of time that I spend on watching ads? Do I want to
Right.
wait? It's the same with games, right?
Right.
You
Right.
you don't have. Sometimes you want to get a skin, you want to build a building in the game itself, right? It takes you maybe 12 days and each day of you going in to farm the coins, right? But if you want to buy the coins, you can buy it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you can earn it or you can buy it. And,
Yeah.
that's right.
So the whole idea is around that, whereby you earn it or buy it. So that's where the monetization comes in. I think what we are being a bit more careful is with the brand sponsorship part of things, which because imagine, right, today you are doing a show, a micro drama, and it's about revenge, and it's very exciting, right? And then within the next second, you start seeing this person using a product. It gets really annoying. It disrupts the whole monetization plan. So we have been a bit more careful with like, you know, especially it's on our platform with how we work, we integrate brands. But I would love to see more of that in 2026.
Understood. And then I'm guessing that the licensing and distribution piece is something that that goes as a B2B part.
Yes, B2B part. That's something that's huge and massive, and excited to see more partners reaching out on this part because, like I said, right, instead of you going to produce 100 and then coming back to say, oh my gosh, I've already spent like millions on it, it's actually a lot better to acquire some series, even IPs, and to get yourself started before you go into a production.
That's right. Yeah, I think those are great cues for a lot of our members who will, I'm sure you'll get a fair amount of inbound from everything that we've heard today. Sorry.
No, I say it'll be a really fun space to be in, and fun space to explore, and it's only going to grow because, like I said, unless today Apple and Samsung decide to change this phone back to horizontal mode again, people are still going to watch content on vertical.
That's right. No, this has been Tim. This has been an absolute pleasure to hear you talk and really explain this entire space. This is almost like a masterclass of where things are in the micro dramas and micro series space. Thank you so much for speaking to us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.